Please comment where you are watching in the world. Nico had the kind of beauty that felt cinematic. Dark curls, pale skin, eyes so blue they looked unreal, like someone had turned up the saturation just for him. He spoke in a soft, deliberate voice, like he was always narrating a novel. When we met, at a gallery opening I almost skipped, he was standing alone in front of a painting of a woman screaming into an empty hallway. "I like this one," he said without looking at me. "It feels honest." We talked for 3 hours after that. I left with his number, a fluttering feeling in my chest, and a belief that something important had just begun. He was perfect at first. The kind of attentive that made you feel like the world had paused just for you. He'd send thoughtful messages, poems, quotes, midnight thoughts. He remembered things no one else did. My favorite tea, the way I took my eggs, the childhood scar on my left wrist I never mentioned twice. We went on 5 dates in 10 days. I told myself it was magic. It felt like falling into a soft place. Warm, safe, unquestionable. Until it wasn't. The first red flag came wrapped in roses. I'd mentioned my favorite flowers once, in passing, blue violets. They reminded me of a book I loved as a kid. A week later, a bouquet showed up at my office. No note, but I knew who sent them. Sweet, right? But then it happened again. And again. Even when I didn't tell him where I was. A Sunday afternoon at the park with friends, blue violets appeared on the bench beside me. After a yoga class I'd never posted about, a single flower tucked beneath my windshield wiper. Still, I ignored it. Told myself he was just intuitive. Then he showed up outside my work. It was a Tuesday. I was walking to grab lunch when I saw him across the street, just standing there. No call, no text, just watching me. I smiled and waved. He crossed the street and kissed me. "I missed you," he said. "We didn't plan anything today," I replied. "I know," he said, "but I had a feeling." The next day he showed up again, and the next. I told him I needed space during work hours. He apologized, brought me a smoothie, said he just wanted to surprise me. "It's romantic," he said. "You'll see." The turning point came one night when I posted a photo on my private story, just a drink at a rooftop bar, no location tagged. 20 minutes later, he was there. "I figured it out," he said, smiling. "How?" He shrugged. "You posted a picture of that drink once before." I remembered the background, traced the string lights. That night, I changed all my privacy settings, made everything private, told him gently that I needed boundaries. He smiled, then frowned. "I just want to see you," he whispered. "Why is that wrong?" I tried to pull away after that. Slower replies, less availability, polite deflection. He didn't take it well. He messaged more, called more, started sending long, looping texts about how much he cared, how afraid he was to lose me, how empty he felt without my voice. One night, he left a voicemail. "You make me real. Without you, I feel like static. Please don't let me disappear." Another night, "I know where you live. I would never hurt you. I just need to be close." I blocked him. Everywhere. Every platform. Every number. Then came the emails. He used burner accounts. Anonymous servers. Some were long and poetic. Others just said, "I'm still here." I came home one night and found a note slipped under my door. It said, "You looked beautiful sleeping." I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called the police. Filed a report. They were kind but non-committal. "No direct threats," they said. "Technically hasn't broken any laws. Keep records. Be careful." I bought blackout curtains. Changed the locks. Slept with pepper spray by my bed. My heart began to live in my throat. Then he vanished. No calls. No emails. No flowers. No shadow across the street. Weeks passed. Then months. I started to breathe again. I moved cities. Got a new job. Told myself I was safe. Started dating someone new. Someone kind. Quiet. Predictable. I never told him about Nico. Some stories feel like curses when you say them out loud. Then it happened again. I found blue violets on my porch. No note. Just the flowers, perfectly arranged. I froze. Stared at them like they were bleeding. It couldn't be him. He didn't know where I'd moved. I never told anyone. I took a picture. Deleted it. Threw the flowers in the trash. A week later, another bouquet. A different arrangement. Still violets. This time a small card. No writing. Just a single drawn eye. My phone started ringing again. Every Tuesday. 3:03 a.m. No caller ID. No sound on the other end. Just breathing. Steady. Familiar. I changed my number again. But the calls kept coming. New numbers. Same time. I stopped answering. But I couldn't stop knowing. I started seeing him in crowds. Once at the grocery store, his back turned, same curls. Once on a train platform, just the eyes staring. Always gone before I could be sure. But I knew. I moved again. This time across the country. New name on my mailbox. New routine. New life. But fear travels. And shadows are good at waiting. Last week, I found a package. No return address. Inside, a photo of me sleeping. Taken through a window. Blue violets on the windowsill. I moved again. But even now, every Tuesday, I still wake up at 3:03. Sometimes the phone doesn't ring. But I hear breathing anyway. Inside the house. Winna called me every night for 2 weeks before we ever met in person. We matched on a dating app, something mindless I'd downloaded to fill the silence. Her messages were poetic, thoughtful, full of metaphors. She didn't flirt so much as weave herself into your imagination. She asked about my childhood, my dreams, my worst memory. She called the first time just to say goodnight. Your voice matters, she said. It should be heard. I thought it was sweet. Thought she was different. I didn't realize I was mistaking intensity for intimacy. We met on a rainy Tuesday. She showed up to the cafe in a wool coat, hair braided down her back, eyes sharp as flint. Her presence was a storm you didn't realize you'd stepped into until you were soaked. She reached across the table and took my hand. I'm glad you're real, she whispered. I was afraid I imagined you. I laughed awkwardly, but I didn't pull away. Winna didn't ease into things, she surged. Within a week, she was texting me constantly. Morning check-ins, midday misuse, nighttime questions that spiraled into confessions. At first, I felt chosen. Who doesn't want to be adored? But it started to weigh on me. The messages piled up when I didn't answer fast enough. Voice memos, missed calls, emojis that shifted from hearts to broken hearts to skulls. The worst part? She was always eloquent about it. Even her jealousy sounded like poetry. The silence between us feels like a betrayal I haven't earned. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I apologized. A lot. I told her I had work, that I couldn't be on my phone all the time. She said she understood. Then she showed up at the cafe where I worked. I was behind the counter, mid-shift, apron stained, when she walked in and sat at the corner table like she belonged there. I froze. She smiled, waved, watched me the whole shift. Later, I asked why she came. You said you were busy, she said, but I needed to see you. I didn't want to assume I wasn't welcome. That night, we argued for the first time. I need space, I said. Space from what? She asked. Me. I'm not saying I don't want you. I'm saying I need air. I am the air, she said. She cried. Then she kissed me so hard it felt like an apology and a punishment at once. I started pulling away. Took longer to reply. Set boundaries. Blocked her once. She emailed me instead. Then came to my apartment and left flowers at the door. Blue hydrangeas. My favorite. I never told her that. She showed up again. This time with a knife. Not in her hand. In her bag. We were arguing, again, outside my building. I said I needed time. That I couldn't do this anymore. Her voice was calm. Scarily calm. I just want to cut through the lies, she said, reaching into her bag. I panicked. Thought she was going to hurt me. But she didn't. She held the knife out. Handle first. Here, she said. If you're afraid of me, hold it. Then I'll be the one exposed. I didn't take it. She left. I reported her the next day. The police filed a report, but said there wasn't much they could do. She didn't threaten you, the officer said. She gave you the knife, right? I nodded. That's not a crime. She vanished after that. Blocked me everywhere. Stopped showing up. No emails. No texts. For a while, I thought it was over. I started sleeping again. Started breathing. But the phone calls began 3 weeks later. Every Tuesday. 3:03 a.m. No caller ID. The first time I answered. No voice. Just breathing. I hung up. They kept coming. Every Tuesday. Every call the same. Breathing. Maybe a faint hum in the background. Like music from another room. Once, I thought I heard her voice whisper my name. But maybe I imagined that. Maybe I needed to. I changed my number. The calls still came. Different numbers. Same time. I stopped answering. But they always left voicemails. Always blank. Except for the breath. I moved. New address. New phone. New routine. Still, the calls came. And then came the ringing. Not just my phone, but inside the house. From somewhere I couldn't find. It would start around 3:03. A low tone. Not a song. Not an alarm. Just a single, endless ring. It wasn't from any device I owned. It lasted exactly 33 seconds. Then silence. I started hearing it in other places. At work. On the bus. In the bathroom. That low, steady tone. Always for 33 seconds. Always at 3:03. I stopped sleeping. I started recording the sounds. Nothing ever played back. I saw her once. Across the street. Just standing there. She didn't wave. She didn't move. Just watched me. Then she stepped behind a bus shelter and disappeared. I started dreaming about the ring. In the dreams, it came from inside my chest. I'd wake up gasping, convinced there was a phone lodged in my rib cage, vibrating against bone. Sometimes, I dreamed she was calling from underground, from inside the walls. One night, I stayed up, sat in the dark, waited. 3:03. The ring began. I stood up and walked toward the sound. It came from my closet. I opened the door. Nothing. Just clothes. Dust. And one thing I hadn't seen before. A photo, taped to the wall. Of me, sleeping. On the back, written in red ink. I told you I'm the heir. I moved again. Farther this time. New state. New number. Burner phone. Still the ringing comes. Every Tuesday. 3:03. No voice. Just breath. And love that won't let go. Solon came from the kind of family that has art on their walls you can't touch in silence that hums louder than music. The first time I met him, he was sitting alone in a campus lounge, sketching something on a napkin. I complimented the lines, sharp, architectural, beautiful in their coldness, and he said, "It's a house I'll build when I stop wasting time with people." I laughed. He didn't, but he looked up at me and said, "You can sit if you want." And just like that, I was inside the orbit of someone who didn't open doors so much as expect them to be held for him. Solon was clever in a way that made me feel slow. He quoted authors I hadn't heard of, described music in terms of geometry, and listened with such intensity that I started doubting every word I said before I finished it. He told me I had emotional excess, that I spoke in parentheses, but when he touched me, it was like falling into silence. I mistook that silence for peace. We dated for 3 months before he invited me to dinner with his parents. "They want to meet you," he said casually, as though it weren't a trial. He mentioned that they were a little traditional, but that they were tolerant in the way people are when they believe they're cultured. I wasn't sure what that meant. I said yes anyway, because I wanted to be seen. The house was enormous. White walls, polished glass, minimalist furniture arranged with surgical precision. The kind of place that looks staged for a magazine, but feels hollow when you step inside. His mother greeted me at the door. Her makeup was perfect in the way statues are perfect. "You must be the artist," she said, kissing the air beside my cheek. His father followed, broad-shouldered, quiet, with a handshake like a formality. We sat in the living room first, drinking wine that tasted like melted coins. They asked me where I studied. I told them I was finishing my BFA in painting. His father nodded slowly. "So you paint for a living?" "Trying to," I said, trying to smile. His mother laughed. "That's adorable." Dinner was served on plates I was afraid to touch. The food looked like it had been arranged by a designer, not a cook. Solon said nothing for the first 10 minutes, just ate, eyes low, expression blank. Then the questions began again. "Are you planning on doing grad school, or? What do your parents think of your career? Do you sell your work, or is it more of a passion project?" I answered politely. Tried to stay graceful. Solon didn't speak. Not once. He just watched his plate like it might speak for him. When his mother asked if I was currently working in food service to support the art habit, I laughed nervously. "Yes," I said, "but just until I graduate." His father chuckled. "At least it's honest work." His mother sipped her wine. "I suppose everyone needs a hobby." I looked to Solon. He was cutting his chicken into perfect squares. He didn't look up. Later, after dessert, I excused myself to the bathroom. I didn't cry. Not yet. When I came out, the living room was dim and quiet. But something was wrong. My portfolio was on the table. Open. They were flipping through it like a photo album of a distant cousin's child. "This one looks like a mushroom cloud," his father said, chuckling. His mother held up a page. Is it supposed to be abstract, or is that just how it turned out? Solon sat beside them, silent, still. My chest tightened. That's mine, I said, voice cracking. They turned, unfazed. Of course it is, his mother said. We were just admiring the courage. So unafraid of form. I looked at Solon again. He didn't blink, didn't flinch. He just looked at me, like I'd already failed him. We drove home in silence. Halfway there, I said, "Why didn't you say anything?" He didn't answer. So I said it again, louder. They were cruel. Still nothing. Finally, he whispered, "You want people to understand you. That's your weakness." I stared at him. He kept his eyes on the road. I didn't go back to his house after that. But I didn't leave him either. Because part of me still wanted to pass the test. To prove I belonged. Weeks passed. He grew colder. Stopped answering texts right away. Started canceling plans with vague excuses. He never apologized. He never asked how I was doing. When I brought up the dinner again, he said, "It's not my job to defend you. If you can't stand up for yourself, don't expect others to." I finally left after finding a note under my pillow, written in his handwriting. What's the point of a muse who doubts herself? After I left, I started painting again, but everything I made came out wrong. Colorless. Quiet. Like the silence had seeped in. Months later, I saw a photo online. Solon at another gallery. Beside him, a new partner, polished, professional, probably someone with a law degree. Someone serious. The caption read, "Sometimes you have to leave small things behind to build something lasting." My name wasn't mentioned, but I felt it all the same. I no longer eat off plates that are too perfect. I no longer explain my art to people who smile while they cut me open. And I no longer wait for people like Solon to defend me. Because the only thing colder than silence is someone who claims to see you and chooses not to speak. Marin apologized for things most people didn't notice. She said sorry when she sat down too quietly. Sorry for texting me too late at 9:45 p.m. Sorry for eating the last fry from our shared plate, even though I'd already offered it. "I just don't want to be a burden," she'd whisper, curling into herself. I thought it was sweet, gentle. I thought she'd been through something rough. Maybe she had an ex who punished her for every tiny misstep. So I made it a point to reassure her. Told her, "You don't have to be sorry. Ever." Looking back, I wonder if that's where it started. We met at a wine bar neither of us liked. Her friend bailed on her, my date ghosted. She was sitting at the counter, fiddling with her necklace. I ordered the cheapest glass they had and accidentally sat too close. She looked over and smiled like I'd walked out of a dream she'd forgotten. We started talking, and the night melted. She was shy but clever, with a voice so soft I had to lean in to catch half of what she said. She didn't make eye contact often, but when she did, it felt like a spell. We started dating a few days later. At first, she made me feel safe, like I couldn't mess up. Every time I did something wrong, forgot a plan, left my phone on silent, spaced out during a story, she'd say, "It's okay, I'm sorry I didn't communicate that better." She even apologized when I was late. I laughed about it with friends. Said I'd found the most understanding person alive. But somewhere along the way, her apologies changed. It started small. "I'm sorry you were upset last night," she said one morning. "I wasn't," I replied, confused. She smiled gently. "You were. You just didn't want to show it." Another time, "I'm sorry I made you tell me not to talk about my parents." "I never said that." "You did," she said. "You just didn't use those words." I hesitated. I couldn't remember not saying it, but I couldn't remember saying it either. She looked so hurt, so certain. So I apologized. And that was the first time I said sorry for something I hadn't done. Over time, things got murky. She'd bring up things I didn't remember, arguments we never had, promises I didn't recall making. "You said you'd be there for my audition," she whispered once, tears brimming. "I waited an hour." Marin, I didn't know about it." "Yes, you did. We talked about it last Tuesday." I checked my phone. No messages. No mention of any audition. Still, I apologized. Because she looked like I'd broken her. And what kind of person breaks someone that fragile? Eventually, I stopped being sure of anything. I'd replay conversations in my head. Check old texts. Journal entries. Recordings even. But I could never find proof, just gaps. Blank spaces where her memory stood louder than mine. I started second-guessing everything. Did I really raise my voice that night? Did I actually forget her birthday? It wasn't for another month, was it? She kept apologizing too. endlessly like a looped prayer. I'm sorry I remembered it wrong. I'm sorry you had to feel like the bad guy. I'm sorry I made you do this to me. The words came like rain, gentle, persistent, flooding everything. One night, I woke up sweating, heart racing. I'd had a dream. Maren was standing at the foot of my bed, whispering my name, over and over, each time more sorrowful than the last. I looked around. Empty room. I reached for my phone. There was a message from her. I'm sorry if I woke you. I never heard the door open. I started pulling away. Stopped replying to every text. Took longer to answer calls. Gave vague excuses for why I couldn't come over. She noticed. Did I say something wrong? She asked. I'm sorry. You didn't. I just need space. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry I made you feel that way. I just thought we were connected. You always said I could tell you anything. I didn't remember saying that, but I nodded. Then I found the notes. I'd gone to her apartment while she was out, just to grab my sweater. The drawer she always told me not to open was already cracked. Inside were stacks of paper, labeled, organized, conversations, arguments, moments of clarity, all meticulously dated, time-stamped, and written from her point of view. March 4th, he said he didn't want me talking to Rob anymore. I cried. He said I was being dramatic. March 17th, he forgot our anniversary dinner. I stayed quiet so he wouldn't feel bad. April 1st, he told me I'm not allowed to mention my parents again. Said it brings the mood down. None of it was true. I hadn't said any of those things. I know I hadn't. Had I? That night, I confronted her. She didn't deny it. She didn't even look surprised. I just needed to remember things clearly, she said. You change your mind so often. Sometimes I feel like I'm going crazy. I stared at her. Maren, none of those things happened. She blinked. Yes, they did. I left. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't explain. I blocked her number. Deleted our texts. Changed my locks. Spent weeks trying to scrub her from my life like a virus. But memory is a faulty archive. And guilt is a good editor. It didn't end there. I started receiving emails from her. Strange, long emails written like journal entries. I know you need time. I'm sorry. I'm working on myself. You were right to be mad. I shouldn't have made you feel like you had to lie. I forgive you, even if you won't forgive yourself. I never replied, but I read every one. Some part of me needed to. Then came the package. No return address. Inside, a binder. My name on the cover. Inside, new notes. Notes from after I left. He texted me goodnight at 2:04 a.m. I know he still thinks of me. He told me in a dream that he missed how I see him. He says sorry in his silence. I closed the binder and set it on fire. Watched it turn to ash in the bathtub. I moved cities. Got a new phone. New job. New everything. But still, on certain nights, I wake up at 2:04 a.m. with the memory of a voice whispering, I'm sorry I made you forget who you are. And I start to wonder, did she dream me into the villain? Or did I dream her into the victim? Because the cruelest kind of ghost is the one that makes you doubt you were ever alive. Lucan Vale was the kind of man people wrote poems about. Not love poems. Not the light kind. The kind where obsession feels like art. The kind with dripping ink and clenched teeth. When I met him, he was reading Anna Karenina in a bar. Alone. He looked out of place, but completely at ease. He didn't glance up until I ordered the same drink as him. A smoky bourbon I didn't even like. Good taste, he said, without smiling. It wasn't a flirt. It was a statement. Lucan wasn't charming in the conventional sense. He was magnetic. Everything he did felt like it had weight. When he looked at you, it wasn't to observe, it was to study. He made compliments sound like diagnoses. Made silence feel like permission. When we started dating, he was all depth and intensity. He wrote to me, not texts but letters. On thick paper, sealed with wax. In them, he called me his only mirror. Said I was the quiet before every storm. I mistook control for passion. And worship for love. At first, he was protective. You don't have to wear that if you're with me, he'd say, touching my hemline. I like you better raw. He meant without makeup, without effort. He said beauty was honesty. I don't want the version you give everyone else, he told me. Just mine. So I stopped dressing up. Stopped going out with friends. Started folding myself into a shape that only fit inside his life. Lucan didn't raise his voice. Ever. He lowered it. When I said something he didn't like, he'd pause and look at me disappointed, not in rage, but in pity. I thought you were different, he'd say. I thought you got it. What was it? The rules. The language of him. The quiet manipulations stitched into his love like landmines. It started with small things. He didn't like me laughing too loudly. Said it was jarring. Didn't like when I ordered food without asking what he wanted first. Said it was self-centered. Didn't like when I disagreed with his opinion about a movie. Said it was aggressively contrarian. So I adjusted, one thread at a time. Pulled myself in until I wasn't sure what the original fabric looked like. He started quoting me back to myself. Things I said in passing, reframed, twisted, turned into evidence. You said you don't trust people, he'd remind me. So why are you questioning me? You said you hate being alone. I'm giving you what you need. You told me you feel broken. I'm trying to hold the pieces. At some point, I forgot that relationships weren't supposed to feel like interrogations. The first time I tried to leave, he locked the door. He didn't yell. He just stood between me and the exit. You don't get to leave halfway through the story, he said. I froze. Sit, he told me. I did. He apologized the next morning. Took me out for breakfast. Held my hand like nothing happened. Gave me a necklace with a charm shaped like a key. So you always feel free, he said. After that, I stopped trying. I told myself it wasn't that bad. He never hit me. He never screamed. He just pressed. Pressed until I bent. Until I couldn't tell the difference between care and control. I lost my job. Couldn't focus. Lucan said, maybe it's time you focus on what matters. I stopped seeing friends. Lucan said, they don't get you the way I do. I started waking up in tears and didn't know why. Lucan said, you're too sensitive for the world. He made me keep a journal. Document your process, he said. Write down what you learned from me. I filled pages with contradictions. One day, he sees the real me. Another, I don't know what the real me is anymore. One night, I left it open by mistake. The next morning, Lucan was quiet. He handed me a fresh notebook. Said, let's start again. I stayed for 7 more months. Because I was scared. Because I was tired. Because I forgot how to leave. Then came the phone call. A friend I hadn't heard from in a year. She said she missed me. That she'd seen a photo of me on someone's feed, thin, hollow-eyed, standing behind Lucan like a shadow. You okay? She asked. I almost said yes. Instead, I whispered, no. And just like that, something broke open inside me. I left that night. Didn't pack. Didn't write a note. Just walked out while he was asleep. I stayed with my friend. Cut my hair. Got a new number. A new job. A therapist. Started breathing again. Lucan didn't chase me. Not right away. But a week later, I found something taped to my apartment door. A page torn from my old journal. He'd highlighted one line. He is the center of everything. Under it, he wrote, you don't get to rewrite truth. I changed buildings. Moved cities. Still, he found ways to reach me. A package at my office. No return address. Inside, a photo of us, framed in black, with a caption scratched into the glass. Chapter 1. The last message he ever sent came 6 months later. A typed letter. No greeting. Just, the sequel's better. I burned it. But sometimes, I still dream in his voice. Still feel his hand on my back when I walk into a room. Still wonder which parts of me were ever mine to begin with. Because leaving is one thing. But getting out of the story, that takes longer. Devin Lux made silence feel sacred. He was quiet in a way that drew people in, like you had to earn his voice. When he finally spoke, it was slow and soft, as if each word was weighed before being released. We met at a bookshop, fittingly. I was browsing the philosophy section, and he handed me a copy of The Myth of Sisyphus without a word. Just passed it to me and nodded, like he already knew I needed it. He didn't ask for my number. He slid me a folded paper with an email address. His first message read, I like that you don't fill space needlessly. I thought it was romantic. Devin believed that most people spoke too much. It dilutes meaning, he told me over tea. Noise is the enemy of truth. So I started speaking less around him. Not because he asked me to, but because the quiet with him felt correct. Heavy but clean. Like a confession you don't realize you're making until after the echo dies. I told myself he was meditative, present, peaceful, but Devin didn't bring peace. He brought quiet, and then he hollowed it out. It started with little things. He'd flinch when I laughed too loud. He'd wince if I played music while I cooked. One night, he turned to me and said, You talk in your sleep. It's disruptive. I apologized. I didn't know what else to say. He smiled and kissed my forehead. "Don't worry," he said. "We'll smooth the edges." Over time, everything got softer. I stopped playing music, started using earbuds when I watched videos. I learned to hold my breath when I cried. He said I was growing, that I was learning to listen to the deeper layers. His apartment helped with that. There were no clocks, no TV, no windows that opened. Thick rugs, thick curtains, thick walls. It felt like being inside a padded box. One night, I said I missed the sound of the rain. He said, "That's not rain. That's just your need to feel filled." I told him I was going to visit my sister, just for the weekend. He said nothing, just stared. Then finally, "You'll come back quieter." After I returned, he said I sounded different. "You picked up noise again," he said. "But it's okay. We'll work it out." I laughed nervously. He didn't. He handed me a small velvet pouch. Inside, silicone earplugs. "They're for the world," he said. "Not for me." He kept his voice low always. I started mimicking him. I didn't notice I'd begun whispering to friends. That I no longer played my favorite songs out loud. That I hesitated to answer the phone. When I did, he'd say, "Why let there sound inside you?" He called it purity. Silence is love. Stillness is intimacy. He said, "Noise is selfish. Stillness is communion." One night, I realized I hadn't heard my own voice in almost a day. That scared me. I looked in the mirror and whispered my name. It sounded wrong, like a radio slightly out of tune. That night, I dreamt Devin opened me up and removed my vocal cords like tangled ribbon. He said, "There. Now you'll never need to apologize." I woke up gagging. There was nothing in my mouth, but on my nightstand was a note. Some dreams teach more than reality. I hadn't told him what I dreamt. I found the quiet room a few weeks later, hidden in the back of his apartment. Soundproofed. Windowless. Empty. Just a chair. A journal. A shelf of my belongings, things I hadn't realized were missing. A scarf. A photo. A notebook. The door had no knob on the inside. Just a button labeled. Silence. When I asked him about it, he said, "It's a retreat. A gift. For when you're ready." I left that night. Didn't pack. Didn't say goodbye. Just walked into the city and let it swallow me with sirens and chatter and the rattle of subway cars. It felt like drowning, then breathing. I changed my number. Moved. Lived with noise again. Laughed again. But something stayed. Sometimes I dream of the quiet room. Sometimes I wake up and realize I've gone hours without speaking. Sometimes I whisper things just to make sure I still can. Last week, a package arrived at my new place. No return address. Inside, a recording. Static. Then Devin's voice. "You were most beautiful when you were still." Then silence, and the sound of a door slowly closing. Callisto wore a stopwatch around his neck like a priest wears a cross. Brass. Vintage. Worn smooth by time and fingers. It wasn't for fashion. He used it. Every time we met, I'd see his thumb gently rest on the top, ready to click. When I smiled. When I kissed him. When I cried. He clicked it every time. Start. Stop. Reset. It's not about time, he told me. It's about rhythm. Energy. You can't build love without a pulse. At first, I thought it was poetic. Strange, sure, but in that alluring way some people are. Half artist, half mystery. I didn't ask questions. I let myself be measured. We met at a time when I needed a distraction. A breakup behind me. A new job in front. I was floating, waiting for gravity. Callisto was gravity. He was lean, pale, always dressed like he'd stepped out of a dream stitched together from antique stores and forgotten theaters. His words came slow and deliberate. He said my name like it was a wine he was tasting. When we first touched, just a brush of fingers on my wrist, he said, 4.3 seconds. Longer than most people allow. That means you're already mine. I laughed. Thought it was a line. He didn't smile. He just clicked the stopwatch. We dated for 3 months before I started noticing the patterns. Callisto didn't just time our kisses. He timed our silences. Our fights. The time I spent talking. The time he spent replying. He'd say things like, "You talked for 7 minutes and 32 seconds before you asked me how I felt. You touched me 12 seconds less this week than last. Our eye contact ratio is down by 17%. He'd show me the data, numbers scrawled in tiny notebooks, columns and timestamps. At first I laughed. "Are you tracking me?" He replied, "I'm tracking us. I'm preserving what people waste." I should have left then. But I didn't. The first time I tried to cancel a date, he sent me a recording. Not a voicemail. A literal audio file. It was me laughing, on our second date. Soft and small and echoing. He'd captured it. Attached was a note. That moment was 9.7 seconds long. I re-listened to it 31 times today. When I asked how he got the audio, he said, "I keep everything that matters." I began to lose track of myself. I started timing things in my head, subconsciously adjusting. If I held his hand for 10 seconds yesterday, I'd make it 12 today. If I complimented him twice last week, I'd try for 3 this week. He never said he was unhappy. He didn't need to. The stopwatch did. He'd sigh if I was off. He'd beam if the timing was right. Love, to Callisto, was an equation, and I was always being graded. The more I tried to match him, the more he adjusted the goalposts. One night, I asked him what his longest relationship had been. He paused, tapped the stopwatch once. 17 days, 4 hours, 19 minutes, he said, before they broke the rhythm. "That's it?" I asked. He looked at me with something like pity. "They ran out of time," he said. "You don't want that to happen, do you?" His apartment was clean in a way that felt clinical. No dust, no color, no photographs, just clocks, dozens of them, all ticking at once, slightly out of sync. A hum beneath every breath. There were drawers he kept locked, shelves with boxes labeled by names and years. I didn't ask, until I did. One day while he was in the shower, I opened the bottom drawer in his desk. Inside, stopwatches, dozens of them, each one carefully placed in a velvet slot, each labeled with a name in small, perfect handwriting. Aaron, Tobias, Lien, Maya, Jonas. All stopped, each with a timestamp frozen, some short, some long, on the back of each. Final moment. Then I found mine, still ticking. I closed the drawer, sat back on the couch, smiled when he walked out, towel slung low. He kissed me and said, 36 seconds without speaking, "You were waiting for me." I nodded. I didn't sleep that night. After that, I started seeing the stopwatch in my dreams, hanging over my bed, hovering above my chest. Clicking, clicking, clicking. One morning, I told him I needed space. He nodded, pressed the stopwatch to his lips like a goodbye. "Everyone does eventually," he said. "But that doesn't mean the time resets." He pulled something from his pocket. A little box. Inside, a new stopwatch. Blank. Untouched. "Keep it," he said, "so you don't forget how long we lasted." I left. Blocked his number. Changed mine. I didn't hear from him again. But the stopwatch he gave me, it kept ticking. Even when I tried to break it, I threw it in a river. It washed up on my porch the next day. Still ticking. I started hearing clicks when I walked down the street. When I blinked. When I turned on the shower. Sometimes I see people pause, just slightly, when I pass them, as if they're tracking something. Sometimes I look in the mirror and wonder if I've already run out of time and just haven't been told yet. Last week, a box arrived at my door. No return address. Inside, a new stopwatch. Stopped at 0:00:00:00:00. A note attached. "You broke the rhythm, but you'll always belong to the time we shared." See, I smashed it with a hammer. It ticked once, then again. They say love is about timing. They never tell you what happens when the clock runs out.